Welcome to 365 Christian Men, where every day we aim to inspire and encourage with real-life stories about men. February 25th, Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson writes award-winning music, speaks professionally, and he is the co-founder of Bethel Music and Worship U with his wife, Jen Johnson. Worship U offers courses in all aspects of worship ministry. Brian strives to combine expert musicianship and songwriting with prophetic worship. He and Jen help worshipers take hold of their true identities and pursue intimacy with God above all else. Although, this passion didn't come without problems. Here's a story about a milestone in Brian's life.
When you've reached the end of yourself, you're finally free to rely on God. Standing near the Sacramento River, Brian Johnson watched his son turn over rocks in the search for lizards. Suddenly, he felt a heavy pressure on his chest, and his heart began to pound. The panic and anxiety set in. The air seemed thin. Brian tilted his head up and tried to take a deep breath, but he couldn't. His thoughts raced, and he tried to figure out what was happening to him. When he was a kid, he had panic attacks, but this was different. This force was stronger. Brian then yelled to his son that they were out of time to look for lizards. They climbed into his car, and he drove towards home. If he could just get back home, he would feel better. His son chatted about lizards, but Brian couldn't focus. The air was being sucked out of him, and the weight on his chest increased. The 5-minute drive home seemed like it took an eternity. At home, Brian told his son to go inside as he walked along the trail beside their home, trying to catch his breath. His wife ran out to him and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "Babe, I feel like I'm losing my mind," he whispered. Then he knelt to stop his head from spinning. "Slow down, just breathe. It'll be okay. You're all right," she said. But it wasn't okay. This was hell. He got to his feet again and they walked in the house. Worship music was playing in every room, but the peace it usually brought was missing. The verses, music, and the words he used to say in moments of panic were not working. He was still flooded with a hopeless, alone, and overwhelming feeling that made him feel trapped in his own mind, unable to escape. He was convinced he was sliding into insanity. He couldn't connect with anyone or focus on anything. The darkness was closing in on him, and he didn't know how to stop it. He tried to sing and pray. "This has to stop. I can't breathe. I'm suffocating." Time passed. Suddenly, the air in the room seemed electric, and something pulled him deeper into the blackness, and he tried to fight it, but his strength was failing. His wife dialed 911 and called his parents. Still pacing, a moment of clarity pierced through. He had to decide whether to fight this or let it drag him down. He walked to his wife and kids and said, "This is when God becomes real." He knew his battle had just begun. Freedom would come, but it would take the next 6 months and not just the next 6 hours. It was a grueling process. The stress of life bore down on him, and even with the help of medication, there was no relief. Brian decided enough was enough. He uncovered the root of his anxiety. Unforgiveness and pain from ignoring conflict and pushing through complexities of life had caused him to pop like a balloon. Recognizing that we're not made to carry the stress alone, he finally understood why his body had turned on him. It was telling him to stop and take a look inside. Brian said, "Our culture often teaches us to man up, instead of admitting that we're really hurting or feeling any pain. We were designed to feel the pain and bring it to the Father. That's what Jesus did. He felt the pain and he laid it at the Father's feet. I thought I would never escape the anxiety and panic that consumed my life, but God did what only He can do." Brian later said, "Consider it a gift when God becomes your only option." 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not a God of confusion, but of peace." Is there a place in your life where you need to be real with God? When you've reached the end of yourself, you're finally free to rely on God.
Thank you for listening to today's story. Every day of the year, our hope is to inspire you with real-life stories of faithful men who have gone before us. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." Join us tomorrow for another story at 365christianmen.com.